Welcome to the New Creators Podcast. My name is Micah,
My name is Sean.
and that's all we have today. This is a little bit of a small episode, but we're just chilling because last episode was our longest episode yet. So we're just gonna kind of take it easy today and just have a shorter little episode and just cover a few interesting things we've seen in the tech space, and that's kind of just about it.
Yeah.
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 As far as
I see.
reception to this episode, wait, did you have something?
No, go ahead.
Okay. So, Anchor, the podcasting platform we use, it has been taken over by Spotify, like fully. So there is no more Anchor.
Oh, fully?
That's not a thing that exists anymore.
Oh, yeah. I saw that because they did like their what was it? I can't remember what they call it. Listen On or whatever it's called.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
They did because this is. I think we'll probably talk about this later, but I have a lot to complain about. Every single app's turning into TikTok.
Yes, yeah, that's actually, we could talk about that because that's something that influences us. But yeah, so now Anchor has become Spotify for podcasters. So okay, so let's see here. Last episode, let's take a look at these. I'm still trying to navigate my way around because they also redesigned the UI.
Oh, of course.
We got 24 plays in the last episode.
Nice.
Not bad at all.
That's not bad at all.
Not bad at all.
It's the Pian and Corbin effect.
Indeed it is. Indeed it is. Let's see here. Okay. Now just looking at our audience, I like looking at the audience stats. 40% of our listeners use Spotify. About another 37% use Apple Podcasts. Then
That's a pretty
rest
decent
of them-
ratio, isn't it? Like between
Yeah, it is.
kind of, because I'd say probably most Spotify users are going to be Android. I bet that's my
I'm surprised.
suspicion.
I'm surprised that we have. I'm surprised that we have like so many Apple listeners, considering how much we bash Apple in this podcast.
Yeah,
Like that very much surprises me. And the split between and the weird thing is on 31% of our listeners listen on an iPhone. Only 11% listen on an Android.
So wait,
even-
where's everyone else listening?
Well, we've got some. Let's see here. We've got some web listeners. We've got some Mac
Alright.
users. We've got some Windows users. Those are all roughly around 10%. Then we've got this big category of other, and I don't know what that is.
So many stat websites because my SoundCloud is the same. You have it's like devices, and one of them's just like other, and you're just like,
Yeah.
what could it be?
So-
Are they
yeah,
using
so, like,
flip phones? Are they using like Nokia
30%.
3310s?
30% of our listeners are listening on other, so I have no idea what that is. But
Who knows?
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So
It's strange. That is very
Yeah.
strange.
it's very odd.
Basically, I know what if to the people listening, I want to know what are you listening to us on? Like
Yeah.
device, like what kind of device, and then also what platform.
Yes, you can always shoot an email to, at least to me, at hi@michaellinley.com. And yes, feel free to choose. I might create like a new creator specific email where people can like email us feedback or stuff like that. That
Yeah.
might be a good idea.
I've always wanted to kind of do like an idea where like we have like a Q&A thing, like we have people bring in like questions and we answer them, like an
See,
episode where we
that's
can answer
supported on
questions.
Spotify. Like in Spotify, you can directly ask questions. So if you're a
Yeah.
Spotify user, you can try that out. But yeah.
Yeah, but the problem is like what was it? 31% use Apple Podcasts, so
yeah,
we're kind of
yeah,
stuck
yeah,
there.
yeah.
We have to have something that's universal.
Which, to be fair,
Just saying.
Spotify is
I know
vastly
we make
superior.
fun of Apple users, but we have to include them. Yeah, true. Sorry, Apple Podcast users, but it's true. Accept it.
Interesting.
yeah.
Well, let's go over what we've been working on. What have you been working on, Sean?
I've been working on just random design stuff. I've got obviously my secret projects as always, but you will not know about them until they
course.
drop, of course. But
Fair enough.
I released this new project recently called God Turned Me Into a Flower, which is basically you've probably seen it. It's like I
have.
hate saying it's a cringy like category, but people call it edgy designs. I don't know what other else you can call
Edgy.
it, but it's edgy. Yeah, it's like basically it's an idea. I explained it as well previously, but basically it's similar to how it's basically breaking design conventions. You know, like you're stretching text, you're like manipulating objects in a way that doesn't usually fly in design, because design is all about keeping things clean and not non-destructive in a way, whereas this kind of breaks those rules, but it still like follows design rules to an extent. You know, you can't just, because I've seen people, they do like stuff where they just slam like some random words on a page and call that an edge design. Like it's like, no, that's just you slapping stuff on a page.
For sure.
Then, you know, so like it's a thing of like, it's organized chaos. I think it's the best example.
Yeah, and it looks really
I think
cool.
that's the best way
Like
to
the way
describe it.
did you use like a grid to distort the text, like a mesh grid?
I used the so you know how in Infinity V2 you've got the like mesh tool.
Yeah.
That's what I used.
Yeah, it looks really cool, man.
Yeah.
And for our listeners, this can be found at
Thanks.
behance.net/data.
Oh, thank you for the plug. Thank you for the plug. Nice, indeed. But yeah, the reason I want to talk about was because it's like based off of a song that I've recently been listening to a lot, which is but the same name as the design, "God Turned Me Into a Flower" by Ways Blood. It's a really good track. Like I'm obviously like I'm not going to be talking about it in the music segment, but just listen to that song as well, please. It's very good.
And we'll put that in the Spotify playlist too.
Nice.
Also, another plug for the Spotify playlist, because there is a New Creator Spotify playlist that has every song that we've mentioned in the music segments or like during the episode, as well as the episodes themselves. So if you want to go listen to some cool music that's recommended by the hosts and the guests, then that's on Spotify if you just search for the New Creators music segment. Or TNC.
Yeah, I think I've got a name for
TNC
this.
music segment. Yeah.
Yeah, it is. I think we've got a good name for the name of this episode, and I think that should be the plug episode.
The plug episode? I like it.
The plug episode. I feel like we should just try and keep plugging as much as possible.
Let's do
I
it.
think that should be our goal.
Let's absolutely do it.
Oh, dear. What have you been working on anyway?
That's a very good question. Honestly, I've not been working on like anything for the past like week. It's been I guess since we've recorded 2 weeks ago, I've been, I don't know, kind of just trying to wrap up. I was wrapping up my midterm exams, and I'm currently recording from my house, not my dorm, because I'm home for spring break, which has not been a ton of a break. I've been doing a lot of stuff, and trying to just like make my rounds, trying to like see everybody, all of my friends and family, before I go back for the second half of the semester. So honestly, I haven't been doing much. It's been a bit of a chaotic 2 weeks.
Yeah, sounds like it, because we've been talking obviously off the podcast about it a little bit, and it sounds pretty crazy, because that's the thing, it's a really strange thing for me, because like I'm college here, I mean you do get university and college where people do go away, like similarly to how Americans do, but a lot of colleges you just kind of go to it like not school, but like not the same hours as school, like it's usually 9 to 5.
Yeah,
but
and
you're still at least going.
That's definitely a thing in the US as well. But like you can go to a college like that's like in your town, but the college I wanted to go to just happened to be out of town. So
yeah,
so I just basically lived there.
America moment.
America.
America. Yeah.
What else do we have on our outline? Let's see here. Oh yeah, someone obtained a whole Pixel 7a before Google could even announce it.
This is insane. Like, how in the world does this keep happening? Like, Google has to be one of the worst companies for keeping things secret, because every single
really
new
bad at
Pixel device gets completely leaked. Like, this has to be the one of the worst leaks as well. Someone literally has a full-on Pixel 7a. Like,
yeah, not even like a test, not
it.
even like an early, not even like a copy that doesn't work. Like, because those have been found in the wild before. Like the copies that don't actually work. That's just the hardware, or that's just like the hardware of the exterior of the phone. But like this is like a full phone.
I know. Yeah, I think the only difference is it does, like when they boot to it, it doesn't boot into like the actual OS. It boots into like, you know, I don't know what you call it on Android or like that, but like the BIOS, I suppose. It boots just into BIOS. Yeah. But other than that, I mean, it's a fully functioning Pixel 7a, like just sitting in Vietnam. And they tried selling it too. They tried selling it on eBay, and it went up to like $2,000 before obviously eBay pulled it.
Yeah.
But I want to understand is how in the world, how did they get a hold of it? And two, how did no one catch them? And
yeah, I have no idea.
Like,
I mean, I'm assuming that like most of these are like manufactured in these overseas factories, and like from what I hear, there's not like a ton of oversight there. So like if you wanted to take something there, that would be doable, from what I understand. So that may be how it happened, or it could be like a Google reviewer actually like lost it, or like gave it to someone they shouldn't have. Who knows?
It reminds me, like, I don't know if you've heard about it, but I think like a couple of years ago, maybe just before COVID, there is this news story about how like a politician or someone in government here in the UK left a briefcase or something by accident, and it had like super top secret like information, and he just left it at like a bus stop. Like, and there was a full on panic trying to get it back before like someone took it, because like, you know, it's like it wasn't it wasn't like nuclear codes or something, but it was still really sensitive information. Like, you know,
That's
it's just
hilarious.
and that's why I feel like this is like DEFCON 5 for like Google.
For Google.
But I mean, it doesn't look. I mean, obviously, I assume you've seen the photos. It doesn't look that crazy. I mean, I'm not surprised.
It looks,
just kinda looks
like a Pixel 7.
Yeah,
It's almost identical.
pretty much. I mean, I think the only difference really is a bit more plastic looking. I think it looks a bit more plasticky than like the Pixel 7 or 7 Pro. But other than that, I mean, it's not anything that would have surprised anyone in terms of how it would look.
Which again, hot take. I prefer plastic, honestly,
And durability wise, I agree.
because
Yeah,
it's less. I would say durability and like I don't know if you've ever felt a Pixel 6a, which is what I have, but like the 6a's plastic feels like glass,
yeah,
or like really really high quality plastic.
well, yeah. Because even metal, I feel the two best phone materials is either metal or, like you say, plastic, like high end plastic, obviously.
Yeah, that's why I really like my 6a, because like the back of it is mostly plastic, but then the rails on the side are metal, so it gives a lot of structural integrity. So yeah, I don't see a problem with the plastic phone. I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah,
Or at least a plastic back,
I agree.
because it also gives
God,
the
remember
potential
this-
for wireless charging, which metal doesn't allow.
Exactly.
Yep.
Oh yeah, this I don't know if you can remember this. You might be old enough. We might be old enough to remember this. But did you ever have a phone that like you could take the back off? Like,
Many. I had
designed
many
to
of
come
those.
off.
Yes, those were
Because I had
loved
an
those.
LG G3. If you remember the LG
I had
G3,
I had a cool
that.
pad,
A cool pad.
which was like this awful Android phone that ran like Android 4.0,
Oh.
and it was like a Walmart phone. It was designed for your kids.
Oh, dear.
And I didn't even have service on it, but we used it to play like Subway Surfers with like 20 frames per second. So
Nice. Peak gaming. No, that sounds like
Oh,
it sounds
absolutely.
like the predecessor to the Gab phone. 'Cause that's another thing we talk about quite a lot.
Oh,
in
no,
my
yeah, it
server.
definitely was.
We actually need to talk about
It was
Gab
like the
in
Gab
an
phone.
episode at some point.
That's
I feel
a
like
good
it's a very
idea.
goofy company.
Yes, it is. Yeah, we should definitely talk about that at some point. Yeah.
Yeah, like I say, I had the LG G3 and its back came off as well, and it was generally really handy.
Oh, definitely.
And it was like a little party trick, because when I had it, it was like kind of when that phone was starting to go out of fashion, like that style. Like that's when phones were starting to get closed, like you couldn't open them. And my phone was like one of the few that could actually still do it, and I was
Yeah.
like, yo, check out this, and then I would just go boop, open up the back like I'm some sort of like
Yeah.
cool kid. I was a weird child.
Feel that.
But yeah, again, Google, you're terrible at keeping secrets. I'm just saying.
It's true. We can also talk a little bit
Yeah.
about the new version of the GPT model, which is GPT-4, which is kind of like
Very creative naming.
yeah, quite creative. Yeah, sticking with the standard, I guess. But
Yeah.
honestly, I was not expecting 4 that soon, because it feels like 3 just came out. I might be, when did 3 come out? Let's see here.
Yeah.
When,
I think 3 came out alongside GPT itself, didn't it? I thought GPT-3 was the one that released in November. Like, not when like ChatGPT became available
the
to
original
everyone.
GPT-3 model came out in 2020. Okay, so I guess
Right.
it's been 3 years, so that's fine.
Okay. But still, I mean, that's kind of crazy. Still, the fact that it's advanced still only in 3 years, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Considering how
sure.
long it's taken AI to even get to this point.
Yeah, definitely. And then
But yeah, so
GPT, ChatGPT is often referred to as like GPT 3.5. So it's like it was kind of like an evolution towards GPT-4. But Yeah, so GPT-4 was indeed released this week. Or I guess, yeah, this week.
It's really funny, like the advertising for it, or like the features, because one of the features of it is that it's basically better at not getting things wrong or like making stuff up. It doesn't make stuff up as much. And it has what it says, more advanced reasoning skills as well. So basically that's them just saying, oh, it doesn't make as much mistakes, hopefully, maybe. And I think they also said it can now see images, like it can actually detect, like see images and try and guess what's in them.
Yeah, so that's
as well.
I think that's
similar
the
to how
most,
Google Lens
I think
works.
that's the biggest. I think that's the biggest feature, because they showed a demo of like, hey, we built this application and you scan the things that are in your fridge and it tells you what you can cook, like with those ingredients. I'm like, that's kind of insane. That's really cool.
That's insane. That is really impressive. I mean, that's like insane, because I think that was the next logical step, was really, because it's gotten the conversational part and text part mostly down. It was next, how is it going to deal with image and video? But now we've got to image, so really next it's video. How will it be able to see video?
Which is just a bunch of images.
Yeah, I suppose.
It's just a bunch of images. So honestly, that's a logical step.
Yeah. But it's crazy to think how fast it's coming along now. Like, it feels like what happened with smartphones, kind of like when it first became a thing, was like how fast smartphones got better. And it's now like we're kind of getting on to like this train of like, you know, like AI is just going to keep getting better. There's like kind of the point where it's just going to rapidly get better.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
But yeah.
They'd even had a demo, just going back to the image processing, it even had to go a demo where like there was a meme and it explained why the meme was amusing.
Oh my god. What was the meme? Do you mind what the meme was?
It was I'll send it in the podcast channel, but it's like a VGA cord plugged into a phone.
That's so funny in a weird way, because you know how like explaining memes is kind of seen as like cringe, like you shouldn't have to explain. And yet now we have AI that's able to explain it. That's hilarious. Yep. It's actually even funnier, because I don't know if you've seen it, right? But there's like, I think it's a Twitter account, and it's like a neural net trying to guess memes, like what's in the image, and the amount of times it gets something wrong.
That's
like
funny.
I saw one, and it was like, it's like a cat looking through like a window that has like, it's like, you know how you have like windows that like when you look through them it warps your face, and it looks like really goofy, kind of like a mirror. Those like magic mirrors. So that's the image. It's a cat looking through one of those, like all warped, and it thought it was a plastic bag.
That's funny.
Yeah. So it's kind of funny to see, like, we have like that really, not, I wouldn't say dumb, because the fact that I can even still try and guess is impressive, but like the fact we have something that can actually make not just guesses, but can actually like explain it as well in natural language. That's insane. Sure.
Yeah.
It's insane.
One of
so to go along with this,
I was going to say to go along with this is there's also this has been less in the news than just like the release of GPT-4 originally, but GPT-4 is the first model that OpenAI is refusing to release any kind of like information about their training data set or like their training methods or anything like that. Which has been like really weird.
I assume that's to deter jailbreaking.
Yeah, because I don't understand.
That's my assumption.
Like, I don't understand how they can do that exactly, but from what I understand, like even like Elon Musk posted about it on Twitter and said, "Hey, this company is not doing what I started to do. I started it to do AI open source." But essentially what I understand is there are now two versions of OpenAI. There's an OpenAI that is an open source company that provides open source artificial intelligence solutions, and then there's OpenAI LP, which is like a private version of that. And so the thing that's been developing these GPT models has been the OpenAI LP, which has no obligation to release these models. And so now this company that once was like releasing all these models open source and like, hey, here's how you can train your own one of these, for GPT-4, they're doing none of that. And there's like a lot of controversy now over like, should AI be open source or should it be closed source for the sake of the greater good? And I just think that's a really, really interesting debate. Yeah.
It's a difficult one. Yeah. I think, I feel there's two parts to that. Because like you say, there's the ethical problem. Obviously, like, is it a good idea to let anyone access the code and basically, almost, make their own, not make their own version, but like reverse engineer it to like obviously jailbreak it. But the other problem I think is more from the business standpoint, because obviously Microsoft has invested billions into OpenAI. I believe obviously it'll be the, like you say, the LP version. And obviously I can imagine Microsoft has actually asked them, or at least maybe, maybe a bit conspiracy theory here, but maybe they've just, casually said, hey, can you not release the code so we can like implement it into our stuff first, which they've already done. They've already upgraded Sydney or Bing AI to the newest version, GPT-4, and they've just announced, I've also added this here, they also announced a Copilot for Microsoft 365, or what used to be called Office, or what everyone still calls it, Office. So it's like we'll delve into it in a few minutes, but like it does seem like Microsoft could be pulling a couple strings and saying to like, hey, can you not release the code just yet, maybe?
Yeah,
because it kind of gives them this advantage where like, because obviously if it's open source, well, Google could take it and make it their own. They have a bigger market share, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I can see that could be a potential issue.
But I think I agree also with their idea of just like AI safety. Like, hey, maybe everyone shouldn't have access to this. I understand that, but to another extent, I think it's worse for one company to be making all the advances. And it seems to me like
I think
OpenAI is kind of doing that.
I don't know how this would work, but I feel like it should be open to like industry and like science, in a sense, like people, like ethical people, like obviously like for scientists and like people who need to research these things to make sure that we're not making something unethical. Because obviously the biggest fear a lot of people have with AI is if it becomes sentient or if it starts to do society harm.
Yeah.
And obviously that's an important thing that really I think that should be at least something that researchers have access to. They should be able to at least look at the code and say, this is safe, this is ethical, whatever. And like you say, it should also be open to industry. Like that, Microsoft shouldn't have, the keys to the kingdom, to say, of OpenAI to like just implement it into their stuff, and no one else can. Yeah, I feel.
So I just thought that was a really, really interesting debate. So it's interesting to see where that'll go. And there are people saying that, oh, well, the U.S. is going to get government regulation involved. And I'm like, oh, gosh, why? So who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows where we're going to end up in this issue.
I think the issue with the legislation is, like, for example, the UK, we have, like, online safety bills they're trying to pass through just now. And the issue is like, they've taken years to get to this point, and they're still not actually refined enough to actually be very good laws. Even no matter what side of the political spectrum you sit on, they don't work for how the internet works right now. And the problem is the internet's now rapidly changing with this new AI stuff, and these laws never accounted for it. Same thing with like when cryptocurrency was a huge thing, like last year. Same idea. They were not prepared for cryptocurrency to become such a huge industry, and not just that, to have so many scams in it as well. So that's another problem, is that even if you agree with legislation, the problem is it's they're never fast enough to actually make it effective.
Yeah,
in my opinion. But yeah, we won't get into the politics because that's not what we're here for. But since we're still talking about AI, like I say, I mentioned how Microsoft's obviously going all in on AI. So they're putting they're not putting Bing into Office, but they're putting a similar Copilot idea into Office. So, for example, in the video on The Verge that they link to, there's an example where someone asks it to make a 10-slide PowerPoint about like a meeting or something, or like a specific topic for their work, right? And it does it. Like, it actually just makes a 10 like slides, like PowerPoint in like seconds.
Yeah, I saw that. It's pretty neat.
It is pretty neat.
I will also
And-
say that. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think something that's underappreciated is the existing AI features in PowerPoint specifically, because like, I don't know if you've ever used it or how often you use PowerPoint, but like there's been a feature in PowerPoint for a few years now where if you just like
Is that
drag in the
the
images
design
and text,
thing?
yeah, the design tool. So like if
Yeah.
you just drag in the
Yeah.
images and text you want on the slide, and then you can I believe it's called Design Ideas, and you click it, and it gives you like a bunch of sample layouts using that design and text, or using those images and text, and it arranges it in something that looks like good and professional. And I've think that's like a really cool AI solution that's been around for quite some time.
Yeah. So essentially, it's similar to just that. They're just expanding it into now. It's not just helping you design your stuff that you've already made. It's helping you make stuff as well. So like I say, in PowerPoint, it can actually generate a PowerPoint for you based on what you need and other information. In Word, you can ask it, for example, in one of the examples I think they showed, it was like, can you write me a minutes of this meeting? And it does it. Or can you summarize this meeting I've got scheduled, like the RSVP I've gotten, and it does that as well. And then in Excel you have it able to analyze data, so you can actually ask, instead of having to do like a ton of formulas, because like that's the thing, right? When I was using Excel a lot in college, a lot of it was obviously having to use these really complex formulas and knowing how to like do them right. But this can, instead of having to do that, any average Joe can basically just ask the AI the question they're wanting an answer to, and it will generate that for you. Like, what was the most best-selling product this quarter or something, I think the example was. So it's interesting to see. Obviously, it's not out yet. I don't think they're launching it just yet, but obviously I can imagine Microsoft's not going to be waiting around to release this to the masses.
Especially since Google is already working on an alternative to this that'll work within Workspace. So
yeah. Yes, so Google's doing the same thing. They're putting in their own AI solutions for docs and stuff.
Which honestly I'm really interested to see as far as because I want to see like how exactly does like Lambda and Google's models stack up to OpenAI's GPT models. I'd be curious to see that.
Yeah, I agree. The other question I had, and it's actually an interesting one, because I don't know what's happening in America, but I know here in Britain there's been a lot of talk from teachers about the problems with having these tools. Is obviously it can help them cheat, kind of. And obviously now, I mean, here in Britain, we every year, like when I was in primary school, high school, and college, we used Microsoft Office. Oh, yeah. So, like, if we have all these tools available, like if I had those tools available at the time, I would totally use them. I would have asked Word to generate me my essay if I had the choice, you know. But the question is, like, is it going to be something where Microsoft's going to give like controls to the schools so they can turn those features off?
I would imagine,
or at least limit them.
Yeah, I would imagine
that's probably the best solution.
There would be something in like the Microsoft 365 admin panel that like administrators will be able to turn it off for groups of students and stuff like that. But it is definitely a concern.
But the next question then, because the other concern is probably how, like, because obviously assuming AI is the future, because obviously this is what a lot of people are saying. AI is going to be the next kind of evolution in technology and software. Assuming that is the case and that it becomes integrated into the workplace and society in general, what's going to be the balance there? Because realistically, schools are going to have to start teaching kids how to use these AI tools effectively, at least, assuming they become more advanced and more complicated. So the question is, how are we going to do that while also making sure they know how to use it, responsibly? Don't use it to cheat on your test, basically.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting anyway.
Yep, for sure. Well, that's all the news we have, and we don't really have a primary topic, so I guess we're moving on to the music segment.
Let's go. All right.
Give me a short episode.
Need to give people a break after the last one, considering, like you say, it was like a half hour longer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Do you want me to start?
Yeah, you go ahead.
Okay, cool. So I'm going to talk about the album Black Star by David Bowie. It was the last album he made before he passed away in 2016. It actually came out 2 days before his passing as well, which is kind of freaky.
Wow.
And what's even, yeah, and it's freakier because obviously, well, you can imagine the album delves a lot into obviously death and what's after death as well, because obviously, as you probably know, he was diagnosed with cancer. He kept it away from the public, but obviously he was slowly dying over the course of, say, a couple years. So obviously he was probably thinking a lot about that, and that's what kind of culminated into this album. What's interesting about the album is it's the influences. So it's kind of weird, the influence, because one of the things David Bowie credited as like an influence for the album is Kendrick Lamar's To Pimp a Butterfly from 2015, which you would never think someone who is a rock star would you know, look up to a rapper in terms of like influence. Now, it's not to say rap is not important, but obviously you wouldn't see those two usually, you know, acknowledging each other too much. But it was mainly due to the production, because in Kendrick's album, it's very jazzy. It kind of fuses hip-hop with jazz, and it's quite interesting. Anyway, I'm not here to talk about that album, but the whole point is that what David did was take, you know, rock from like the 60s and the kind of 70s, the 80s and all that, and fuse that with jazz. So it's like this kind of weird amalgamation of like the past and present, alongside the fact that it's all done digitally. Like the drums are all quite digital, where it's not like live drumming. It's actually like all, it's not like electronic drums. They're not like, you can't like, it's a hard thing to describe, but they sound like real drums, but they're actually digitally produced. Anyway, so it has this almost like uncanny valley kind of sound to it in a weird way. But yeah,
That's really interesting.
anyway, it is. Yeah, and obviously the album has a lot of interesting looks on death, because like it's a similar thing. Like he's pretty much at death's door, and he's pretty much opening the jaws of death and like showing you like basically how it all looks. So like for example, the track Lazarus is him talking about him leaving all of his like possessions and going on to whatever, you know, beyond the grave kind of thing, right? Yeah, and obviously a lot of the other tracks delve into that as well. What's interesting about it as well is just, it's kind of like, in a weird way, it's not like depressing, because obviously a lot of people would think from that description, oh, it must be quite a depressing listening. And obviously, like with the context, yes, it is quite a sad thing to think this was the last thing he did. But the album itself is not, I wouldn't say celebratory, but it's not looking at things in a somber way. It's looking at it from a perspective of, you know, it's, I can't escape this. You know, it's inevitable, so I might as well turn it into a piece of art, you know, and make like, you know, something impactful as my last kind of, you know, farewell in a way. It's like a kind of last ride, you know, kind of thing, if you get what I mean.
Sounds quite cool.
But yeah, if that sounds interesting, you know, have a listen to it, guys. It's very good. I'd probably say the best tracks are the title track, Black Star, which is like 10 minutes, but it's really good. Sue, or In a Season of Crime, and Dollar Days.
Gotcha. All right. Very cool.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I have. Are you familiar with Sleeping at Last?
I don't think so.
So I don't really know how to describe Sleeping at Last. It's like kind of, let's see how they describe her. Yeah. So he was originally like a composer, who did who did some like film related things, but then he started just like making his own music, and it's like really, it's kind of cinematic but also kind of like acoustic, but anyway, he has this album, well, he's been doing this project for a few years called Atlas since I think 2014, and in 2019 he released this album called Atlas Enneagram, which I don't know if you're familiar. There's this like personality test called like the Enneagram test. Anyway, it's like the album is, the tracks are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, which are like the 9 different personality types you can get if you take this personality test. But aside from all that, it's just a great album. Like all the songs are like really neat, and he's like a very cool poetic songwriter. But my favorite track is 8. It's just like a really neat track. It's like a good mix between like kind of like electronic stuff, but with some very like orchestral influences, and it's quite neat. I did take the Enneagram test, and I think it's too vague because like it feels like the description could match just about anyone, but I'm not the biggest believer in personality tests in general. But
yeah, same.
Aside from that, the album is top notch. It's a good album. And Sleeping at Last stuff in general. I actually did one of his songs, North, in a choir concert a few years ago because we sang a choral arrangement of it. It was quite cool. But
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Didn't you actually? I think you talked about it in the last episode, but you actually mentioned you were going on a tour with the choir, I believe.
I did.
How did it go?
Yeah, we went through southern Mississippi and into Pensacola, Florida. It was quite cool. Yeah, it was a neat experience.
Yeah.
Yeah, super glad I was able to do that.
So now you can say you're a Florida man.
Florida man. Yes.
I'm waiting for you to
Florida
turn up in a
man
headline.
takes Florida by storm. Yes.
Florida man takes Florida in his bag.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what I've got. So.
Cool. Sounds really good. And like I say, quickly about the personality tests, I agree. They're all just a bit vague, aren't they? They're just kind of, like I said, I
think it'd be fun though at some point if we got all the hosts to take a personality test. I think that'd be quite fun.
Oh yeah, that would be
just
interesting.
Just as a silly thing.
Yeah, I like how we've like shot like 3 different ideas for like podcast episodes on here.
We always do this. We always do it. It's great. But yeah. Well, I guess that brings us to the end of the episode. It's a little short one today.
Podcast speed run.
Speed run, 36 minutes, possibly our shortest episode yet.
Yeah, world record, any percent glitchless.
Oh boy. Well, yeah, feel free to join the Discord or find us elsewhere on the internet at bio.link/TNC. We have no plans for the immediate next episode, but you've already heard a few of our plans for possible other things we might do during the episode.
Oh, since this is the plugging episode, I thought I'd also plug, we've not mentioned it, is we have a Google form that you can apply for being a guest potentially on the podcast. So if that sounds interesting.
Is that also on our bio link?
I'm not sure. We might need to add it.
We need to add it because okay. Well, I'll add it. So yeah. Well, all right.
Yeah. But yeah, so if you're interested in being a potential guest, then do that, guys.
Absolutely.
When we actually add it to the bio link.
So keep an eye on that. Alrighty.
Yeah.
Well, this has been The New Creators. I'm Micah.
I'm Sean.
And we'll see you next time.